Okay, I hear some of you are already starting to share with the person beside you. That's good. So please share one insight with someone nearby. Okay, let's just take another minute or so to finish up. Okay. I think this morning that the business people and the health people will be very interested in the things I'm going to share, but let me talk to the teachers for just a minute. And some of you are business and teachers. I have lots of material this morning. And then I find out, ooh, I must finish on time. We have to have our picture taken. And I feel pressure to cover all the information. But Dr. Green is sitting on my shoulder saying to me, there is an inverse relationship between the amount of teacher talk and the amount of student learning. Or another thing he liked to say is covering the information. I thought my job as the teacher was to uncover the information. So I tell myself, okay, take the time, let the students have some discussion and thinking on their own. But now we will go really fast. So remember the 4 questions that I thought about before I came to ICE this week. What can I learn about people, my students, my colleagues, the parents or customers? What can I learn about educational and vocational processes? What can I learn about measuring and improving performance? And how does Paul's teaching compare to 21st century ideas? So before we look at more verses, I want to take a look at the ideas from 2 books. And I debated as I was thinking, should I start with this academic information and then connect it to the Bible? Or should I start with the Bible and then connect it to the theoretical information? And either way would be okay, but I decided to start with the Bible, and I'm glad I did. So I hope this information from research will help you make more connections to what we talked about yesterday and also to the insights from 1 Thessalonians I'll talk about today. So here's the books. The ones I used a lot are First Break All the Rules, and it's a bad title because it's not really about breaking rules, but anyway. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and 2 other good books, How the Brain Learns and Growth Mindset. Some of you are quickly writing these down. I talked to Dr. Arcelli this morning, and if you want to get my PowerPoint, as long as Sally has your email, they will send it to you. Or you can write an email to Sally, and she will send you my PowerPoint. If you wanted to get it to me, get it from me and download it, just bring me 2,000 pesos, and you can download it. It'll be much easier to get it from Dr. Arceli. Okay, so here's first break all the rules. And I wish yesterday I had time to talk to Dr. Sam about this. I think it is mixed methods research. It's based on 80,000 interviews, in-depth interviews with 80,000 managers at hundreds of companies. There's also surveys involved. And if you're familiar with dimensions of learning, anybody study that, dimensions of learning? Yeah, so as soon as I saw this book, I said, oh, that's where all those ideas came from. So many of these ideas have been applied to education. So it gives us a measuring stick, performance, measuring performance. How do we know where we are as leaders? If you are a teacher in a classroom, you are a leader of your students. These apply to you. If you are a dean or a chair and you are managing professors or teachers, you are a leader and these apply to you. Or if you're a business leader, whether a small business or a huge business, I think all of these can apply. So it's mostly focused on performance, but very much about people and process. These are questions that adults ask of themselves, and they were asked of adults in a work environment. Most of these, as I said, can be applied to the classroom. On successful teams, these questions are answered positively on a scale of 1. Many, many questions, many interviews, and then they take the best performing and the worst performing and see which questions, what's the fewest questions that can really help identify why are these high-performing teams doing better. All right, so here are the 4 basic questions. Again, write them down, take a picture if you want, but you can also have the PowerPoint. They are very important. You must do them in order. And if all you do is the basic questions, you've done a lot. So these are the 4 levels: basics, and the overall question is, what do I get? Level 1, what do I give? Level 2, do I even belong here? And level 3, how can we all grow together? So let's take a look at the questions. What do I get? Do I know what is expected of me at work? Are the projects and assignments clear? Do I know how I will be evaluated? We heard last night about some students that thought, whoa, I write in my journal and I'm sharing my heart, but I don't get the full marks. Well, maybe it wasn't clear to you exactly what was expected. And so the professor needs to be clear. This is what I expect in the journal. This is how you will be evaluated. This is true of workers that work for you and their performance. And then the second basic question is, do I have the materials and equipment, the resources to do my work well? And do I know where to go and who to see if I need help? So this is a very important question in the elementary classroom, in the graduate study classroom, in the business world. So if you don't know what's expected of you and you don't have the tools to do it, you can't be successful. Okay, now we're talking about the second level. So those are basic, and then the second level is level 1, just to make it a little confusing. All right, the big question is, what do I give? And so at work or school, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day for at least part of the day? And in school, the student would say, am I constantly frustrated and struggling? Our youngest daughter was a special needs student. She is, well, none of my family is here except my wife. She is the most beautiful of our children, but she had real difficulty in school. She is the most responsible of our children, but she could not go past 8th grade math. She is the most organized of our children, but she could not pass the test to get her high school diploma. And so for her, school every day is a struggle. She's a very successful wife and mother now. But she said, Dad, you don't know what it's like every day to know you are going to go and fail. So somehow we have to figure out how can we give our students an opportunity to do what they're best at least part of the time. Here's one, fits exactly with 1 Thessalonians. In the last week, have I received recognition or praise for doing good work? You know, there are people that go for months and they don't hear anything positive from their supervisor. In your classroom, is it possible that in 1 week you have a student that has not heard any praise or anything positive from you? It's possible, but you need to work at making it impossible. You need to have a plan, a pattern. Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? There's that saying about, well, I can't remember it, so I won't say it, but if students don't think that you like them or love them, they don't want to work hard for you. Students want to be loved and liked by their teachers, even at graduate school. When I am almost 40 years old going to graduate school and I walk in, I am very nervous. Will my professor accept me? Will my professor like me? Will I fit in here? So little children, of course, it's very important for them. Does someone care about me as a person? Is there someone at work who encourages my development? Now, I think this is kind of easy in school because that's why our students are there. That's why we're there. But if you're a business leader or in healthcare, then your colleagues, your workers want to know, is there someone that's encouraging me to improve? Well, that's what ICE is all about. So I hope here you are getting this encouragement all the time. Okay, next level of questions. So this would be level 2. Do I belong here? And students ask that about being in your classroom as well. This is really hard, and we heard about it last night in the panel discussion. At work or at school, do my opinions seem to count? Is anybody listening to me? Do I have a say in my daily schedule or in what I study? And so there's other research in education. I was just listening to a podcast about this last week, but giving students choices. So I observed once in a 5th grade classroom in a very poor city school in Ohio. And the teacher, it's 5th grade, and the teacher would list out, okay, here's the assignments for reading class today, and I think he had 3. And the students can choose to do them in whatever order. Do they want to study their spelling words and vocabulary words first? That's okay. Do they want to read this section? That's okay. Do they want to work on this grammar assignment? That's okay. They choose the order that they do them in. And that small thing really just increases, they feel a little bit more powerful. They feel like what they want to do matters, even though they're doing what the teacher has organized for them. Some of my kids had to do country reports when they were in high school, and you choose the country that you want to report on. And so my daughter was going to go with me to the Dominican Republic in a few weeks to go on a teaching trip, and oh, she was so excited about it. And so she told her teacher, I want to do my project on the Dominican Republic. And the teacher said, no, someone else already chose that. You have to do something else. I thought, what? She's going to go there. She is so excited about this. Why won't you let her do it? Usually I resist calling the principal, but that time I called. And suddenly it was okay for 2 people to do the same country. Anyway, giving students choices, very important. Does the mission or purpose of my company or my classroom make me feel my work is important? I think you should have a mission statement for your classroom. And there are several good ones in 1 Thessalonians and throughout the New Testament. If it possible, live at peace with all men, especially those of the faith. So there's many good mission statements you can have for your classroom. Are my coworkers or classmates committed to doing quality work? You want to have that overall feeling in your classroom that doing it right, doing it well, doing it excellent is more important than just hurry up, do it, turn it in. In Here's an interesting one. It's very, very important in the workplace. Do I have a best friend at work, or do I have a best friend in my class? And when children don't have friends, and we know that there are kids that have difficulty making friends, if they don't have a friend, it's so difficult to be successful. All right, here's the top level. How can we all grow? In the last 6 months, has someone talked to me about my progress? Only 6 months, only twice a year? But I think about, in my position, my supervisor talks with me once a year about my progress and the goals that I've made. And he tries to do one halfway through the year. So in the work environment, that's probably okay. But in K through 12, I mean, this should be every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, that the teacher is having an individual conference with you to talk about your progress. How often for university students? I don't know. I would say every, at least once during the semester, you're meeting with your advisor or your mentor to see. And here's the last one. In this last year, have I had opportunities at work to learn or grow? Well, that doesn't fit school very well, because I hope in the last hour have I had a chance to learn or grow, because school is all about learning. Okay, so there's the measuring stick for you as leaders. And I think if you head this list and you just start working on it, remember, start at the basics. Okay, the second book that I looked at a lot, and I'll tell you the truth, I did not read these books. The first one I skimmed, I found what I thought was the most important chapter and took these questions for you. But I've been reading bits and pieces of it, and it's very interesting. It's got lots of stories in it. This book also is one that I just read some summaries and reviewed, and did not read the whole book. But he is a well-known writer. I've read some of his other stuff. Good reading. He writes on business management with a focus on teams. In this book, he uses a leadership parable of a struggling company. So he's telling a story of an imaginary company, and from that, he unearths the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Many of these can apply to schooling, but also healthcare as well. If the only thing you get from this is this quote from this book, it's great. The primary role of the leader is to lead by example. We heard that in several of the sessions yesterday, and of course I talked about it yesterday morning. The leader must be the first person to be vulnerable, to be open, to share his life. The leader should encourage debate without being afraid of saying your honest opinion. Successful teamwork is about combining common sense with discipline and persistence. Persistence, we heard about that earlier this morning, I think. Okay, so here's the 5 dysfunctions. Absence of trust. And if you've ever worked in an environment where you didn't feel like you could trust people, you know how terrible that is. Fear of conflict. This is one that really gets me, because I don't like conflict. But when there's no conflict, there's no resolution. Lack of commitment. If you work with people that are not committed to what you're doing, you know how difficult that is. Avoidance of accountability. If you've worked with people that aren't accountable, your boss isn't holding them accountable. My daughter-in-law is like this. She had somebody on her team at work that just should be fired, but they're afraid to fire her, and she just isn't held accountable for not doing her job, and it's just, oh, my daughter-in-law is so frustrated. And inattention to results. If we just keep going along, doing the same thing we've always done, as things go downhill, 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 and we're not looking at the results of what we do. So I'm going to just go quickly through these, and you can look at them on the PowerPoint. But when there's no vulnerability or sharing of weakness, we see Paul doing that very openly in 1 Thessalonians. When we're afraid of conflict, when there's no debate and airing of differences and opinions, then people won't buy into decisions. So most of us, even if our way is not chosen, if somebody listens to our way and we at least get a chance to share it, most of us are okay with going a different way. But when we can't get our opinion heard, then we aren't happy with it. If people don't make a commitment, then there's no mutual accountability, and you end up in a situation where people are just protecting their own job or protecting their turf. They aren't working as part of a team. It's just like, I'm not on board with going in the direction that we're going, so I'm just going to protect my own turf. And then finally, you need to pay attention to results. The results of what you're doing, however you've chosen to measure the outcome of your work, needs to be clear, and positive behaviors should be rewarded. So when people are moving the team towards their goal, they need to be recognized and rewarded for that. Okay, and just this quote once more: the primary role of the leader is to lead by example, the first one to be vulnerable, encouraging debate. Successful teamwork is about combining common sense with discipline and persistence. So now back to 1 Thessalonians. So here's Paul in chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. Just as we have been approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel, so we speak, not as pleasing men, but God who examines our hearts, for we never came with flattering speech. How many people shared this insight? Okay, on this side, we were just talking about that a little bit at dinner last night, weren't we, Jim? Okay. Pleasing people does not equal pleasing God. Empty praise and flattery does not work, and the research shows it doesn't work. So we should speak with integrity as pleasing God. So I found my job as Dean of Education at Cedarville the hardest part of my job, but I always felt it was one of the most important, was telling people things that they did not want to hear. Your grades are not high enough to get into the education program. Your dispositions are not suitable for you to go on to student teaching. You show up to class late, you don't turn in your assignments on time, you can't go out to student teach next semester. So having difficult discussions with faculty if they are not doing their jobs the way they should. And yet, if I don't have these conversations, who will? So my thinking is, when we are pleasing God, usually we are pleasing people. They just love to be around us. There's that heavenly aroma of a Christian that's really following God, following Jesus. But sometimes we have to choose. I'm not going to please people because I want to please God. And so this goes right along with dysfunction number 2, which I told you was my weakness, fear of conflict. I can remember one time sitting at a table in the meeting. I get the feedback if I go over there. The meeting is getting a little bit tense, and people are sharing their opinions quite vociferously, and I'm a peacemaker at heart. I want to help people see both sides, and let's not argue about this. And one of my friends says, Phil, let them talk. And so we shared our differences, and then we came to a conclusion. This is one I always have to keep working on. Okay, in verse 6, he says, nor did we seek glory from men, either from you or from others, even though as apostles of Christ, we might have asserted our authority. Who talked about this verse? Okay, some people did. This is a very important one. So this is talking about process. It's talking about humility in teaching and leadership. And I think the direct thing Paul is teaching here is that we should use our authority wisely and sparingly. If you grew up in America in the 50s and 60s like I did, one of your favorite TV shows might be The Lone Ranger. the masked man, and he had a silver bullet in his gun that I don't think he ever used, but he always had that silver bullet that was special. And my boss will say to me sometimes, I've got a limited number of silver bullets and I'm not going to use it on this situation. In other words, there's time that we can pull rank and say, hey, I'm the superintendent, this is the decision I'm going to make, and this is what we're going to do, everybody get on board. But if a leader is doing that all the time, something's not right. So I used to go out and observe student teachers and field experienced students. And sometimes when I'd get to school, the students were lining up for recess. And so I would get in line. And they would just look at me. And the teacher would say, no, come on up here. And I said, no, it's okay, I can wait my turn. Now, if I was late, then I would use my privilege as a guest to go ahead. But if not, I will just wait in line. This applies in a university situation. At my university, there was a little bit of a problem where the faculty, we have PhDs. We are very smart. We have worked very hard to get where we are. And we are much better than the person who is cutting the grass and emptying the trash, right? So that the faculty is here and the staff is here. One of the things that I appreciate about the Adventists, at least in my time at Andrews and even being here for a few days, people don't think that just because I'm the professor, I'm better than the person who empties the trash. Anyway, be careful not to overuse your authority. Paul didn't do it. And of course, we should live by the rules that we ask our students or colleagues to live by. So a quick story, in our little Christian school, one of the rules was no running in the hallway. It's for safety, right? So one day, I stopped a little girl in the hallway, and I got down on one knee, and I said to her, what were you doing? I was running in the hallway. And what is the rule? No running in the hallway. And what happens if you run in the hallway? I have to write sentences saying I will not run in the hallway again. That's right. She said, but Mr. Bassett, you run in the hallway. I said, well, that's because I have an emergency or something. But I thought about that and I thought, no, I run in the hallway because I just run everywhere. I'm always in a hurry. And if I'm running in the hallway or a first grade girl is running in the hallway, who's going to hurt somebody? It's me. Come around the corner, boom. And for little boys in first grade, whenever they have to go to the bathroom, it's always an emergency because they didn't know they had to go until right now. So we changed the rule a little bit that nobody can run in the hallway. And twice I had to write sentences. I will not run. Okay, but you get the idea. If they're good rules, we should all live by them. Okay, here's verse 8. Having so fond an affection for you, we were pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you became very dear to us. Anybody talk about, okay, several people connected on this. This is one of my favorites. So this connects with, we need to know somebody cares. We need to trust and be trusted. So Paul is talking about sharing his life, showing that he trusts the Thessalonians, showing that he cares about them enough to share with them. So how can our students learn how to get through the difficult times when they face puzzling situations, when they think their teacher never does? Everything's good for their teacher. Their teacher always knows what to do and always does the right thing. No. We need to share the good and the bad with our students. We need to be vulnerable and open and talk to them when we make mistakes. Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? If I'm sharing my life with you, yes. And then the absence of trust. So Lencioni says the root cause lies with team members being unable to show their weaknesses. And when you see a leader that is not willing to share his weaknesses and to admit to her weaknesses, that's a trouble, and that person's supervisor knows, okay, we're headed for trouble here. We all make mistakes. It's human. It's natural. We share those. We move on. For you recall, brothers, our labor and hardship, how working night and day so as not to be a burden to any of you, we proclaim to you the gospel of God. We should carry our share of the work. We should be an energy giver, not an energy taker. But like Prima told us this morning, we did not coordinate our notes, by the way. You have to ask for help when you need it. Paul says in chapter 3, verse 2, he said, when I could stand it no longer. I wasn't sure if you were still following the Lord. When I could stand it no longer, I sent Timothy to see how you were doing. So he said, Timothy, I've been trying to get back to Thessalonica. Could you go and see how they're doing? He asked for help when he needed it. So this is talking about leading and teaching by example, and that we should be looking for ways to serve our students and colleagues. You can tell this is an old story and how old I am. Back when I was first teaching, everybody wore shoes that tied up, right? No Velcro, no slip-ons. You didn't wear those kind of shoes to school. So when you went to kindergarten and first grade, you had to learn how to tie your shoes. And so if a student came to me and said, oh, Mr. Bassett, will you tie my shoe? I would say, no, let me teach you how to tie your own shoe. But if I'm walking along and I see a student with an untied shoe, I will kneel down and tie it for them to show kind of a servant attitude. So if by helping the student you are hurting them from learning, then no, you shouldn't help. But if by helping the student you can show a little bit of servant leadership, then I think that's good. So look for ways to serve your students and colleagues. Okay, and then these verses 7 and 11, I'm sure several of you talked about these, where he's talking about being gentle like a nursing mother, but exhorting and imploring and encouraging like a father. Paul was a tough guy, but he talks about being as gentle as a nursing mother. So this is not a message for women, it's a message for us guys as well. We can be tough, but gentle. Paul not only exhorted people, telling them what they should do, he also encouraged them to do the right things. As teachers, many of us are very good at exhorting, but not so good at encouraging. So sometimes we have to be in a parental role with students. We can be gentle even when we have to be strong. Some people call it the velvet fist. So a strong fist, but it's covered in soft, gentle velvet. And we need to think of organized ways that we can encourage our students and colleagues. So I've mentioned student of the day in the past. Yesterday I mentioned the teacher that wrote notes to his colleagues to encourage them. So think of ways. All the good things is a teacher at a Catholic school in America. And one day she was so frustrated with her class that she said, okay, we're passing around a piece of paper. And everybody put your name at the top, and then we pass it around. And you write one good thing about the person whose name at the top. So all around the classroom, everybody comes back, and they've got a list of 20 good things about themselves from their classmates. 15 years later, not 15, I guess it was more like 5 or 6 years later, a soldier killed in Vietnam came home, and in his wallet was that piece of paper folded up. He carried that so he could remember the good things about himself that his classmates saw in 7th grade. So anyway, focus on the good things. Okay, verse 13, I'm going fast now. Truth and knowledge cannot be forced on students. They have to be accepted. Paul says you took what I taught you and you accepted it, not as my words, but as the word of God. Dr. Green always used to say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. That's a common saying in America. But then Dr. Green would add, but you can put salt in his oats. Make him thirsty so he'll want to drink. In verse 14, we see more modeling at Paul. We talked about that yesterday. In 17, 19, and 20, we see Paul saying, you are our glory and joy in the presence of our Lord Jesus, who is our crown of glory. It's you, and it's your students. So when you aren't excited to go to class, when you aren't looking forward to seeing your students, all of us feel that way sometimes, especially on a Monday morning. But if you're feeling that way over a long period of time, maybe you need to change your job. Maybe you need to go to a different place. Our students need teachers that are looking forward to coming to see them. Okay, this one, in verse 18, Paul says, for we wanted to come to you, I, Paul, more than once, and yet Satan hindered us. So Paul wanted to go because he felt God was leading him to go. That's my assumption. It wasn't just to please himself. He was a man of great spiritual power. He had done miracles, but still Satan could stop him from going to Thessalonica. That scares me a little bit. I'm not Paul. So what did Paul do? And can this be a model for us? Well, he prayed for them. He sent Timothy to go see them, and what else did he do? He wrote them a letter. Oh, no, he wrote them 2 letters. And for thousands of years, millions of people have read those letters and been blessed. So even when Satan thinks he wins, he loses. And so I think it goes right along with what Dr. Prima was saying this morning. We just keep persisting. And even if we don't get to where we think we're supposed to go, God uses it. Okay, another pattern we see in 1 Thessalonians. Paul's saying, praying most earnestly that we may see your face. We really want to come see you. And we want to complete what's lacking because you need to learn some things. He says, even though you receive from us instruction as to how you ought to walk and please God, just as you are also doing, you're doing it. But you should excel still more. Now, as to the love of the brethren, you don't need anybody to write to you, but I'll write you 2 books anyway. We urge you, brothers, to excel still more. So this is a pattern that we can see throughout this book if we had more time. Compliment, challenge. Compliment, challenge. Compliment, challenge. That's the rhythm of teaching. Don't just challenge, 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 challenge. You say, oh, okay, you're doing well. Now let's see if we can do this a little bit better. You've got to get the compliment part in there. Okay, and then finally, the key concept. We're not going to read this passage, even though it's my favorite passage in the New Testament, talking about the return of Christ. Maybe I'll just read verse 17. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them and meet the Lord in the air, and so we shall always be with the Lord. This is a key concept in eschatology for us as believers. But it's only part of the reason that Paul wrote it. Many people say this is the key. Therefore, comfort or encourage one another with these words. I'm teaching you this great truth so you can encourage one another. And so all throughout the book we see this encourage, encourage, encourage. So I know we're not even at the middle of our conference yet, but this is my last chance to talk to you. So I would like to read this over you as a blessing, and then we'll see if we have time for questions. Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you entirely, and may your spirit, soul, and body be preserved complete, without blame, at the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. Faithful is he who calls us, and he will bring it to pass. Brethren, pray for us, and I will pray for you. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Phil Bassett, for the 2 days of excellent presentation. We are sorry for this morning because we ran out of time because of this excellent presentation, and I'm sure we really enjoyed the presentation, so there will be no question and answer for this morning keynote session. But I'm sure if you do have questions, kindly approach Dr. Phil anytime when you see him around, and I'm sure he'll be willing to discuss about your questions with
remember, you were exhorted last night to ask for cards. I didn't wait for people to ask. Yesterday I was just handing them out.
Okay. Yes, so I think we will now proceed to our break. Then after the break, we're going to have the photo session. After the photo session, there will be seminar and workshop. One will be here in the amphitheater, and the second group will be in function hall. So I think so that we can have the photo session quickly. May I suggest that those who will be joining the seminar in function hall will be those who will be taking will pick up the, I think it's ready, the snack, I think it's ready now. You can pick up the snack so that there will be no heavy traffic in the kitchen. But those who will be staying here for this seminar, then you can proceed directly to the function hall. I think we'll be on the left side of the function hall for the photo session. Then you can come back later on after the picture taking for your snack. Can we do that so there will be no heavy traffic actually at the kitchen? I think now we can proceed for this short break and also photo session and breaks. Yes. But before then, as our appreciation to Dr. Phil Bassett for the excellent presentation this morning, we would like to present the certificate of appreciation. And we are hoping that this is not going to be the first and last visit to IAS, but this is going to be the first and many more to come. Thank you so much, Dr. Phil Bassett. Okay, we can now proceed to the session.
Shall we proceed to the photo session so that your face will be there? Please, can we go there for the photo session? Yeah. Dr. Phil Bassett, if you can join us. Yes. Thank you. Dr. Keva Fondi, can we have a photo session? Because the program will start soon, in 4 minutes. So please, let's do that. People are waiting already. Yes. Yeah. Please join the photo shoot, the photo session, beside the function hall.
started discussing about creating a safe psychological learning environment, particularly how to respond multiculturalism inside the classroom. Unfortunately, based on our experience, sometimes there are students who really are not behaving well, or sometimes we have a hard time responding to their needs without knowing that they are being bullied. This morning, in 25 minutes, I'll be showing to you some basic facts about bullying, particularly in school, and some legal basis of bullying for the schools and institutions. So I'll be showing you some facts through these short video clips. And I hope, are we here? Okay. Let's see how it works. Okay. This is a very short clip, 1 minute and 24 seconds. Just to give us a glimpse about bullying inside the classroom. So those were some short information about bullying. The resources were actually based from a study conducted in the United States. 1 week before I came to IAS, a junior high school student, actually from the other building, approached me looking for the guidance counselor of the senior high school. So I accompanied her to the principal's office because the guidance counselor wasn't around during that time. And she was actually telling us that she is being cyberbullied by the ex-girlfriend of her present boyfriend who happens to be a senior high school. it bothered her so much that she decided not to come to school anymore. So the brother came to us. The brother is actually an alumnus of our school. And then we started to discuss issues about bullying. Dr. Saban yesterday was actually explaining the challenge of creating a safe and psychological classroom. And sometimes, without knowing what our students are going through, we right away judge that our students are not paying attention. It's just that they are not behaving well without us knowing that our students are actually undergoing or facing some forms of bullying. And what the government is doing about it. Recently, there was also a high school student in a neighboring high school who committed suicide. And then after his death, a suicide note was found in her, directed at another student that has the effect of actually causing or placing the latter in reasonable fear of physical or emotional harm or damage to his or her property. Some facts and statistics. According to the World Literacy Foundation by the UNICEF, 1 in 3 students ages 13 to 15 experience bullying. 16% of which have experienced physical bullying, while 11.2% have experienced sexual bullying. Before I transferred to, or after I transferred to a public high school, coming from an all-boys school, I discovered that there is this set of junior high school students who engaged into sexual or group sexual activity. I realized, I started to question when they started to be absent every Monday in their school. Because they are my student during that time and handling edukasyon sa pagpapakatao that happens to the values education class. And I started to talk to this group of students and I realized that what led them to doing such was actually an external pressure coming from one of the leaders of the group. Based on research, 1 in 5 high school students reported being bullied at school in the last year, when most of them were actually unreported because of fear. Common types of bullying are physical bullying like hitting, kicking, punching, spitting, tripping, and pushing. While verbal bullying, which is very common among high school students, are teasing, name-calling, and we have a lot of that, inappropriate sexual comments, especially in Facebook. And mind you, teachers did not escape from this bullying from students who are very techy in using social media. They tried to create an anonymous account and trying to hit and say bad words against their teachers, especially those teachers they are not in agreement with. This is exactly the social bullying that includes someone spreading rumors, making embarrassment and embarrassing comments. This actually led to the creation, now there is a pending bill I mentioned yesterday in the Congress, or the Philippine Congress, we call Teachers Protection Act. We have this Child Protection Act that actually stops teacher from doing any physical harm or even emotional harm to students. Unfortunately, this act has been abused by students and parents. Teachers most of the time are dragged in social media just to find out at the end of the day that the teacher is innocent. So this Teacher Protection Act now, in the second reading in the Congress, aside from other elements contained in that act, one of the significant part of that bill connected to this is that social media or even our in mass media, teachers' name are not supposed to be dropped in any cases involving them unless proven by the court of law. And this will also tries to minimize those cases that tries to abuse teachers, particularly in trying to destroy the reputation of the teacher. There are different kinds of bullying as reported. 4% had been cyberbullied, as again, the most common bullying form in high school. 5% had been intentionally excluded from activity. If you are a Filipino and been watching about teleseries, we normally watch after school. This kind of bullying is very rampant, not only in government schools, but even in private schools. Students discriminated because of race or social economic status were actually excluded from activities, which is also considered as a form of bullying. 11% had been physically bullied. This is one of the reasons that took me 15 years before transferring to the government school. I am a product of a government high school. But after graduation, I decided to teach in a Catholic universities for 15 years. But after some time, I decided to go back to the public school because of that realization that I have to share those insights that I had in those public school or private Catholic schools. In one of the schools I was into, there is what we call Salesian Preventive System. I'm talking about Don Bosco school system. If you're familiar with Don Bosco schools, we have one in Mandaluyong, in Makati, and even in this part of Cavite and other parts of the world. You would realize, just like Ayas, no, which I'm very much impressed of the structure of the school, 2/3 of the vicinity of the school is an open ground that gives students plenty of time to interact with one another and even with their teachers. Earlier, our plenary speaker or our guest speaker was telling us about those policies of not running. In that school, however, it's different. It says, run, jump, shout, but do not sin. So students are given more time to play, of course, during their recess time and during their vacant time. And teachers are actually playing with them. So during that time, I am coming from Cavite. No, I used to stay in Imus for 7 years before I transferred to Pampanga. And I have to take my motorcycle from Imus to Mandaluyong. We normally bring an extra shirt during recess time. During lunchtime. Because the scenario in the school is like this. Students, these are all boys school, who happens to have a lot of bullying cases also, which are actually sexual discrimination. Students would normally eat their lunch during recess time. Between 12 to 1 o'clock, that's the time for them to play. They would either go to the soccer field, to the basketball field, and they even have a billiard table inside the principal's office. The mentality is this. According to the founder of the school, in the Catholic Church, we call him a saint, Saint John Bosco. He said, if you want to know your student, watch them and play with them, and you will know what kind of student they are. Why? When students are actually playing, they are actually working unconsciously. And it is during that time where you realize those who are honest players and cheaters. We also play with them. Just like what some of you, for the past days, we were taught that as teachers, we need to love what our students love so that they will love what we loved. But we have that very personal in school because these are an all-boys school. We say, love what the boys loved and they will love what you loved. 18% had been rumors spread about them, and teachers included. 21% had been called names or otherwise insulted. Of these bullying cases, 81% of bullying acts aren't reported to adults because of threats, because of fear, of losing friends. 71% say bullying is a problem at their school. 56% says they have seen bullying in their school. Sometimes, students are afraid to intervene, to stop cases of bullying because of their cases, like they are afraid to lose their own friends, or they are even threatened to be bullied by themselves later on. 31% had been bullied by a classmate. So why do students bullied according to studies? In this infographic, it says, students bully because of the feeling of powerless in their own lives. This is ironic. I would normally tell my students, I need not to go to your house to know what kind of family you are from. Bullies were actually powerless. These are the students who don't have the authority at home. That is why they find someone to exercise that sense of power. Someone else is bullying them. So, and that is a bit confusing and sometimes difficult to address to, because the ones who are bullying were actually being bullied by themselves. We are being bullied. Jealousy or frustration. So students are bullying because they are frustrated and they have to bring out that frustration into someone. Lack of understanding or empathy. They just actually need someone to talk to. In one of the schools I'd been working with, this actually, I was telling you, the Salesian Assistance. It's actually a preventive system. We call it school preventive system. When teachers detect in his class that someone is different, it's not necessarily that the student is not participating. Maybe the student is going through some emotional pain. And that is why the students sometimes decided to skip classes or decided not to come to school anymore. And they just need someone to talk to. Looking for attention. I was giving retreats and recollections to senior high school graduating students. And you know what is ironic? Last year, there were 3 students, senior high school grade 12 students, who get pregnant towards graduation time. In a Catholic school or other Christian school, that's a big issue. But in the government school, that's another story. And since they are 18 years old, it's less of a moral issue for some. As long as their parents are aware, their boyfriends are there to support them. And you know what is ironic with this girl? She is the highest honor of the batch, graduating in 2 weeks' time. So I am privileged to be the retreat master because she was given a chance to share. And before she started sharing, he started to cry. And she said, I know I have done a wrong decision in my life. But I did not regret I have someone in my tummy. But towards the middle of the story, you know what we realized? He said, this might be not so significant for some, but the real reason why I decided to accept the offer of my boyfriend to make love is that I want my parents back. During that time, months before that, the parents is at the brink of separating. So the mother is actually into somebody else and the father is also having another partner. So this girl with the other siblings are actually left by themselves. So she is trying to work not only for herself but also for the other siblings in order for them to survive. But she said, when my parents found out that I'm pregnant, they started to go back home and reunite. So it might seem very simple. But here, some of our students may sometimes just need attention. Mimicking behaviors of family. In education, we are taught how our students learn. At a certain point of their lives, they learn by following what they saw. That is why these bullies may sometimes are product of parents who are bullying one another. That's exactly the philosophy or the logic where I am coming from when I told my students, I need not to visit your house to know what kind of family you are in. Bullying behaviors get rewarded. There is a sense of satisfaction among bullies every time they saw their victims crying. But also, there is this song which says, you are not a girl, but you are not yet a woman. Our high school students are at that stage of their life that they experience some emotional and psychological mismatch that they have difficulty of managing their own emotions. And sometimes they try to find physical way of expressing them and they find it through bullying. But what are the possible effects of bullying to those who are bullying and those who are bullied, and even those standing by or seeing bullying? On the bullied students, effects could be in three ways. One, physical, psychological, and even academic effects. Students who are being bullied most of the time are having this frequent occurrence of headaches, stomach aches, and sleeping problems. Why? Because they keep on thinking those scenarios, those events in school or even outside school. Public school has different scenario, much more, because many of these schools are actually located from the depressed area. And there is many cases of gang or students trying to bully a group of students. So because of that, they are not psychologically and emotionally stable. Other psychological symptoms is that students started to have a low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence. Students started to be depressed, and depression sometimes lead to committing suicide. And we had already cases of that in our region. And that is manifested through the notes found after the students ended their own lives. And of course, academically, we have the difficulty of creating psychological safe environment if students are being bullied. And this is also manifested by their poor academic performance. So if you are a very observant teachers looking at the performance, academic performance of your students, you would realize that prior to the bullying accident or incident, students are actually trying to excel in class. But you would realize that at certain point in time, they are getting lower grades. Not because that they don't understand you, but it's more because they don't pay attention anymore. Because they are going through these bullying dilemmas. On the one who is bullying, punching, pushing, shoving, kicking, slapping, pranks, teasing, fighting, using prohibited weapons. In public school is very challenging. Because we don't have actually budgets for security guards. In cases, we only hire some personnel. We call them, those who are non-teaching personnel, to take charge of securing the premises. But we try to maximize the student government to help the school in trying to protect and maintain some safe environment. There are cases in some government schools that students are able to bring pistols and even grenade inside the school. And I don't know what the parents are doing. And not only that, no? Aside from prohibited weapons, it comes with them the illegal drugs. Inclusion number 2. The law also prohibits cyberbullying or only any bullying done through the use of technology or any electronic means. But then cyberbullying is not only frequent with students. Teachers are also, as what I mentioned earlier, teachers are also victim of bullying by students this time. Because students are more technologically savvy than teachers. They could even create dummy accounts in order to devastate the reputation of their teachers if they don't want. They are that empowered in a negative sense that any wrong move of teachers, they don't even go through the principal. Parents would normally go to either to the radio station or even to the regional director just to put down a teacher even without going through the standard operating procedure that is very tantamount to the reputation of the teacher. All schools are required to adopt an anti-bullying policies that maybe all of us are doing. The law also prohibits at allocation, activity, function, or program that is not school-related. That is why entering into fraternity is very much discouraged, especially among high school students. Third, inclusion. The law also prohibits retaliation against a person who reports bullying. Sometimes there are some good Samaritan students who would try to help report the incident. Unfortunately, some of them are stopped because of the threat from those who are bullied. So the law also protects them by giving them this privilege. Or those who is a witness to or has a reliable information about the bullying cases inside and outside the school. So how do we practically, as teachers, as school leaders, prevent bullying in our school and in our classroom? So these are very practical ways to prevent bullying in school. One is create and implement policies. All the division or school divisions offices of the Department of Education were actually mandated by the central office to create policies, even local policies on anti-bullying law. Orient academic community of the law and the school policies on bullying. Sometimes, or other public schools who can afford, try to incorporate these policies in their school manual or student manual so that students are aware of the possible consequence of bullying acts. We try to place reminders about the school, and this is maybe the most that we do. No? We use some kind of a contest, like poster making contest about anti-bullying, and then these posters were displayed around the vicinity of the school. And of course, Dr. Ansaban was actually telling us about his fifth C's, which is character building. And another way, and for me, a more sustainable way of eliminating or minimizing bullying cases is to model love and respect to all the members of the academic community. Students would rather behave well if they know that they are accepted and loved. I had a case in one of the schools I'd been working with. We are very particular with the rule of three. I need not to mention the university. At the first offense, the student's attention is called. The second offense, students has to sign a note, an agreement between the parent and the school. On the third account, the student's name is displayed in the wall. We call it a public warning. Within the school year, the student violated any prohibitions, he has to leave the school. And these students are sons of high-ranking government officials. So at a certain point, the school policies was challenged. When they have to ask the father, who happens to be in the Congress, to leave the school. And the school is known for producing government leaders. So the school leaders reflect. Until when we have to do this? So eventually, with the help of other teachers, they decided to have a sort of reformatory program. So those students who violated after the third offense should undergo a psycho-emotional session, but they are not allowed to go to the class yet. So it's a sort of a 1-week retreat. And after that, they are again inserted back to the class. And they try to see the effect. And one of that student happened to be under my advisory class. So I even questioned the way I advised my student. But he was given a chance. He was second year when he was under me. That year, he went through the psycho-emotional session. At the end of the school year, he approached me. Third year, the following year, he's no longer my advisory class. He said, Sir Doy, I think I want to become a student council officer. He ran and won as the vice president of the student council with 5,000 students. Because he is a basketball captain, he has a lot of friends. And we know that friends with the same feathers are the same birds. They created a project conceptualized by themselves because these are people who are into music. They invited renowned bands like Kamikaze, Parokya ni Edgar, those who are in the Philippines, you know who are these people. And they were able to raise 100,000 pesos for the school. That is the following year before they graduated fourth year. If you try to relate that to our anti-drug campaign in the Philippines, giving people a chance to reform might sometimes end up reforming their lives. Because at the end of the day, who are we to judge who will live and who will not? And I think that is the same case with bullying. We didn't know that these people who are into some emotional and psychological problem might end up the president of the Philippines later on. And since they've been through this kind of challenges in their lives, as our plenary speaker says that in every challenge, there's always a solution. And with God's grace, a miracle can happen. So therefore, our challenge as teachers is to create a safe classroom, which is a Christ-like and values-oriented classroom. Through values formation and values-related approach to bullying, we try to create the value of friendship, compassion, kindness, respect, and acceptance. And let's try to see how this will change the bullying atmosphere in our school. According to Feuerstein, never be bullied into silence. Never allow yourself to be made a victim. Accept no one's definition of your life. Define yourself. I would always tell my high school students, no one can make your life miserable if you will not allow them. You only have to recognize your own dignity and importance. And maybe even those people are gone to appreciate you, there's still someone up there who value your personality more than anyone else. The Gospel of Luke says, but I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. And this is now the Christian dimension of countering bullying. And maybe not only for cyberbullying, to end, maybe we say, stop bullying, start loving. With that, thank you very much and good morning.
So I have invited Mr. Saban to introduce the next speaker, resource speaker for this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I won't be speaking today, rather tomorrow, but I would be introducing our next speaker for this morning. Well, he is wearing a lot of hats in a sense that he's an educator until now, teaching at the NBI Academy, training future NBI agents as well as police officers and AFP officials. He is also a public safety officer, being a member of the National Fire Protection Association in the United States, as well as the chairman for the Public Safety and Order Support Group, which is one of our sponsors for this event. He is also a public servant, being an AFP official, having the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, and an NBI consultant, at the same time mentor there. He is also a consultant for the Office of the Governor for the province of Bataan in disaster preparedness education. He is a well-studied individual, having studied engineering, philosophy, religion, education, law, public management, and a lot of other education that he has gathered throughout the years. Well, without further ado, let us welcome Lieutenant Colonel Israel N. Vergines.
Thank you very much for that introduction. But the one thing I have learned for around 4 decades of learning and studying, I started learning when I turned 6, and until now, I'm studying. I do not know if I can finish my Doctor of Science in Disaster Management. So, after this, but the one thing I've learned, I've never learned to talk. And I've learned to talk right, especially when I'm using foreign language. Madalas ako nagkakamali. How can I? Pwede? Sorry. Akala ko kung ninabot sa akin. Sorry. Okay. Where is it now? Okay. That GSC, that is General Staff Corps. That is the course for a general. You won't become a general unless you finish that. That's why all those who are in the senior level of the military are striving to be there. And it's quite steep. When during my time, out of more than 20,000, we were only 2. So nice to hear, but I've learned nothing at all, except I've learned that I graduated. So let's have some learning. We will. We are expecting that after this short period of time, we will be able to compare and contrast safety and security, understand the difference between hazard and disaster, present solution to potential threats to students' physical safety, and for your KWL, well, wala akong, maybe Mark has something to give you, right? So you will do it simultaneously while I'm talking. This one, what you know, you have to write it, because tomorrow you will continue the learning. But although I will not be here because I have to attend to some of my appointments in where I am tomorrow. I know I have you have to know to write. Just write what you know, what you want to know, and then at the end of the learning, you try to compare if the things you would like to know was discussed and if what you know is confirmed or not. Okay. What do you know about creating a physical learning environment? I have very, very few time, so can we just skip this? the 2 minutes is important for us now because less otherwise all of you will leave and, you know, go to kitchen or maybe in the cafeteria for food. So, skip na lang natin to, alright? Babalikan na lang ni, sorry, are there people here who can understand Tagalog? Oh, sorry for that. So maybe Mark will go back to this tomorrow, okay? I will, where? Okay. Let's just start our journey here. What is safety to you? And what is security to you? When I was in the College of Law, our dean told us that there are 3 things in life of which a person cannot avoid. That we are business entity, we are legal entity, and we are spiritual entity. Well, business, because every day we pay our fare, that is legal. That is actually implied business transaction. You go to a restaurant, you eat, if you don't pay, they will charge you of stapa. Although there's no contract. Because it is an implied contract that upon entering into that restaurant, upon serving the food and eating it, it is implied that you agree to pay. So, that is business. And we are legal because when you were born, you were registered. When you get married, you're registered. When you die, you're registered, right? Spiritual because even those who don't believe in God, they find something to worship, including themselves. That is ironic. Okay. Safety, according to dictionary, is a quality or condition of being safe. Freedom from danger, injury, or damage. I found out that in this life, there is no such thing as freedom from danger. I guess you can only find that in heaven. Danger is always imminent and always with us. But being a victim of such danger is defined by the knowledge and degree of the person exposed to that danger to avoid it, right? The greater your knowledge, the bigger your chances of avoiding it. But the more ignorance, the more possible that you will fall victim. So, okay. While security is freedom from apprehension, anxiety, or care, confidence of the power of safety, which we were talking about a while ago, hence assurance of certainty. You can notice security is working where? These things are working not in the physical. It is working right up here. It is working in the mind. So you may feel or you may believe that you are secure, but actually you are not. There's a saying that there is bliss in ignorance. Because it is not within your comprehension that you are in danger, you feel you are secure. Simply because you are ignorant. So, security works in the mind, while safety works in the physical. You feel secure when you know that there is a security guard. But there is no certainty that you can be secured by that security guard. Especially if the security guard is like me. You know, SWAT. Security walang ayos na training. so, will you please translate it for those who cannot understand Tagalog? So, if your security guard is trained by me, they will end up like SWAT. You may believe you are secure, but definitely you are not. Okay? That's what I was always telling my student in the College of Criminology. Okay. The common idea is, to be safe, you must be secured. Or to be secured, you must be safe. Well, it depends on you, which one you want to believe. But after our short journey today, I guess you can decide well. Look at this. Oh, we will skip this again, because Mark will do everything on this. You have to fill in that one. What is that? Okay? Then let's go to the meat of our lesson. Are you familiar with RA 10121? Those who are aware, may I see your hands. Very few. Most likely, you will die all in disaster. Because this is the law. What's there? An act strengthening the Philippine disaster risk reduction and management system, providing for the national disaster risk reduction and management framework, institutionalizing the national disaster risk reduction and management plan, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. This is the reason why we have the National Disaster Coordinating Council before, then now is Management Office. This is the reason why from your barangay to national level, we have these offices now. Before, they are not existing. This is the reason why 5% of all our funds is set aside for this purpose. If we have 4 trillion, you take away 5% of that 4 trillion, and that amount is solely dedicated for this. That's how vast or big the amount we set aside for this. So also with the GAD, gender advancement, that is also 5%. So if your school or if your institution, especially if you're in the government, are not doing this, they are not spending the money they are supposed to use for that, so they lose their chances. Okay, what can Republic Act 10121 do to help building a safe and secure learning environment and nation as a whole? Look at this, in the section 14. The coloring, underlining, and the italicized is, I supplied it. But this is what is in the law. In the law, you cannot find the red, the line, and then the italicized. But the same word. Integration of disaster risk reduction into school curricula, sangguniang kabataan. Look at this. Mandatory training for the public sector. The public sectors are those who are working in the government. Everybody, from the president down to the lowest mammal in the government, in the government, what's this? Employment. The DepEd, the CHED, the TESDA, in coordination. These are the 3 bodies that regulates our educational system in the country, are mandated to coordinate with the Office of the Civil Defense. This is the office under the National Defense Department, okay? National Youth Commission, and so on and so forth, and other relevant agencies. What they will do? Shall integrate risk reduction and management education in the school curricula of secondary and tertiary level of the secondary and tertiary. During the sunset review, I was asked by the people there in the Office of the Civil Defense, what will I say about this? And then I told them, this is not enough. It should start from the prep. Because not all those people who are attending preparatory or elementary school reaches secondary. Well, it's good if it's okay to kill and let all those who are less educated die. That's okay. But if it is not your decision, if you would like them also to survive disaster, then we should lower the age level required by law to learn and understand disaster preparedness. And that is what they are doing in Japan. That's why you can see how Japan responds to disaster. Because the moment a Japanese entered the preparatory school, they have a specific curriculum for disaster preparedness until they finish their PhD. So the greater their knowledge or their education, the greater their capability to respond. Okay. Does your school practice this mandate? If yes, how? And if no, why? In fact, one time, USEC of the DepEd talked to me, and requested me to write a book for the teacher, and I have it actually. But it was first purchased in Mindanao. But until now, it is not being paid. Well, anyway, I have the record of more than hundreds of thousands of copies being purchased by the government. While RA 10121 requires the integration of DRRE, or disaster risk reduction education in all levels of education to increase the nation and populate disaster risk reduction and preparedness, however, in matters of building and maintaining safe and secure environment, Republic Act 9514 has more to say. And what is this 9514? This is older than the 10121. RA 9514, this act shall be known as the Revised Fire Code of the Philippines of 2004. 10121 is 2010. Okay? While 9514 is 2004, so older, right? But since it is revised, it was a revised version of much older than this, the Fire Code of 1978. Thank you very much for the martial law. Because if not the martial law, all of this code, except the civil code and the penal code, will never exist. Because most of this code are anti-rich people. Building code. Who owns the building? Rich people. They don't like that. Electrical code. Mechanical code. Who uses this code? Those who are using elevator, escalator, they must be rich, right? The fire code, including labor code, all of these codes were crafted by one person. And that will never happen if the Congress, you will wait the Congress to do that before martial law. And ironic, the same code that gives power to the labor is the same code they use to topple the government that gives them the power. That's how bright Philippine people are. They love to bite the breast that feed them. It's like those people who are studying in our own state colleges and universities. They are being financed by the state, and in return, they fight back the state. Very good, right? What does the Bible say about that? Can a kingdom stand when it divides itself? Tell me. I heard you are Christians here. You believe in the Bible. So do I. I tell you, that's the reason why it is very difficult to build our nation. Okay. Although Republic, where's that? What happened? Okay. Although Republic Act 9514 was crafted primarily to prevent the occurrence and suppression of all destructive fires and professionalized fire service in the country, however, it is more closer to people's daily life, for everyone utilizes fire for daily existence. Right? Wrong? You cannot cook your food. We don't have these lights and all of this, including this, what I am now using, the microphone, without burning. Right? I'm burning now here an electron, right? Your air conditioning. Most safety laws are prospective, highly technical, and preventive, while RA 9514 and its IRR, or implementing rules and regulation, in addition, likewise, deals and explains practical, immediately applicable, and common daily experience, which usually caught attention even by a child. For example of this code talks about accident, emergency, disaster, hazard risk, fire hazard, so on and so forth. Now, I will not discuss all of those, but I will discuss very few related to your work as teacher. Okay, what is an accident? Does accident happen in your school? And what happens when there is accident? Some teacher got problem, right? Some don't. But look at this is what an accident is. It is an unexpected incident. What is the difference between an incident and an accident? One time I entered a room after my class, after the class of another teacher in the College of Criminology, and I read in the board, they were being taught how to write an incident report. So the example is vehicular accident. And then the student wrote there, accident happened. I told them, okay, now tell me, what is wrong with this? Of course, they are young. They don't see yet the difference between incident and accident. Be very careful by using those, especially if you will use this in the court. Okay? When you say accident, it's already accident. When you say incident, it has to be determined whether it is an accident or not. Why? Okay. An expected incident which happens due to unsafe acts or condition. Notice carefully, please. To consider an event as an accident, it must be what? Unexpected. When it is expected, that is not anymore an accident. Someone must be liable. Someone must be punished. It should be unexpected. When a thing is not anymore unexpected, but somebody failed to perform the duty to abate an impending trouble, they failed to act in emergency. That's why we called it emergency, of which maybe I cannot discuss it here anymore. But as a teacher, you should understand that it is important to distinguish accident from negligence, because negligence is criminal while accident is not, although it may appear the same. For in accident, the criminal liability of the offender is offset. Regardless of how worse the outcome of an accident, once it is an accident, you have no criminal liability even if everybody dies. Because it is an accident. For example, a bus, met an accident, and all of its passengers died. After establishing that it is an accident, nobody will be answerable with that except civil liability. No criminal liability. That's why it is very, 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 very important for us to determine the difference between an accident and not. If a vehicular mishap happens because of brake failure, there must be someone to answer it. Why? Because losing brake will never happen abruptly. There must be negligence in the part of the driver. Because it won't happen immediately. Little by little, you will feel the weakening of the brake. So you have to stop it. So what? If you have to let them alight the vehicle out of time, why will you continue the travel or the trip when you don't know where you will meet an accident or maybe a mishap? Then we are calling it an accident. It is actually a negligence. If a tire exploded because the tire is already worn out, that is not an accident. It is negligence because that is perceived. You can see the tire is already out of proper working condition. And then the police will just simply write their accident. Woe to you, victim of that negligent act. You lost your relative and nobody answered to it except few amount of money. Because you don't know. An incident is not an accident if it is not attended by any of the following. If it is attended by any of the following. An incident, remember, is not an accident if any of the following I will show you is present. According to what? According to revised penal code. Why it is revised anyway? We always hear revised penal code. That is the criminal code actually of our country. Revised because it was the revised version of the Royal Penal Code of Spain. Because the Spaniards came here, they brought their penal code. So we used it until 1932, if I'm not mistaken. When the Americans came over, sometime 1911 or whatever, they endeavor, through the help of our, of course, legislators, to write a revised version of that penal code. And since that time, we call it Revised Penal Code of the Philippines. This is where our criminal actions are being defined and punished. And then all other criminal acts not included in the penal code is called special laws, like the drug laws and so on and so on. Those new laws, the 7610, anti-child abuse, right? 9262, BAUSI. Or you are always victim of 7610, right? You know what is wrong with the 7610? The last word there in the prohibitive acts, or any act that deters the growth of the child. That's why even a simple word of you are dull, and then the student claim, or the parents of the student claim that the child is not anymore interested of going to school because of what you said, then you will become liable, right? But read the law, that is not the intent of the law. If I were you, I will fight my case up to Supreme Court. But sad to say, most of our teachers, when they are filed or when they met or they are discharged by a case of 9262, they opted to settle. That's why, until now, it is not decided what is really the intent of that portion of the law. You read the whole law, and it's all about sexual abuse. That's why the child, you cannot bring them into a motel, into a resort, into cinema. Those are what actually the law was saying. But you don't know, right? Anyway, you have to, because until it is defined by the Supreme Court, you cannot define it. But the Supreme Court cannot define it unless there is a case reaches their attention. But because you're always giving in to the wish and whims of the parents, no cases reaches it. You fight, and then you tell. And then tell them, ask them, is this what the law really means? Is this the intent of the law? That the teacher cannot say right or correct words? Telling the child his true condition? I don't think that's the intention of the law. Lest otherwise our lawmakers are crazy. And I don't think our lawmakers are crazy. Right? So, look at this. If an incident is attended by negligence, it is not an accident. If an act is attended by imprudence, it is not an accident. That's why in every vehicular incident, right, or mishaps, the case is reckless imprudence. Because it is assumed that the driver committed imprudent act until the court rules that there was none. Okay. Lack of skills. That's why it is so important for us professionals to have our license. Because our license proves our skill. A driver without a license is automatically a criminal. Because that is what the law says. Well, sabi nga, they say, Duralex, Sedlex, the law might be harsh, but it is the law. We can do nothing about it. Unless otherwise we amend or repeal the law. But we are not a lawmaker, so we cannot do that. Of course, when there is lack of foresight. You know, lack of foresight, in Tagalog, tanga. Right? Right? So, for the Filipinos, you understand. Ang tanga, nagiging kriminal. Why? For example, you have a rifle, license, you are authorized to use it, and then you fire in a snake on a tree. You hit the snake, and then your bullet passed through the snake and hit another person. Tanga ka ba? Are you not aware that the body of a snake cannot stop the velocity of a bullet? Oh, that is the meaning of lack of foresight. Tanga ka ba? you should know what the capacity of what you are using, right? Okay. So, an important caution for a teacher. By law, a teacher is considered a parent of a pupil or student while on his or her care. Right? Wrong. You know that, right? You cannot pass your board exam if you don't know that, because often it is being asked in the board. Right? This is known as the principle of locum parent. Ganun? Am I right? In loco parentis. Oh, by the way, loco is the root word of the word location. We have this in civil law, lex loci, meaning the law of the place. Place, loci, loco, loci, parentis, parents, right? In the place of a parent. Okay. An imprudent, negligent, unskilled, and without foresight teacher, including the principal, who employs an unlicensed teacher, an administrator or owner of the school, who violates the law, are considered criminal by law whenever an untoward incident happened to a student while under their care or school premises. Know that? So don't be very brave. Be very, very careful. If anything happens in the school, because your teacher is unlicensed and the parents is full as I am, they will run after you. And not only the teacher, the principal who allows the teacher, and not only the principal, the administrator or the owner of the school who allows. It's good. Many Filipinos have long patience. They don't have the patience to. They have long patience to tolerate wrong and very short patience to fight for the right. They don't have the patience to fight long and tedious cases, although it is right. That's why wrong persists. We have a long patience, very tolerant to wrong and error, but very short patience to tedious and laborious journey to justice. Is that common? Is that correct? Most often than not, right? Okay, now, going to what I was saying about emergency, this is also a situation which requires what? This is the definition of that, an immediate action. Anything which requires, or any situation which requires immediate action is what we call emergency. That is by definition of a dictionary. Okay? And accepted by law. Emergency, example, improperly disposed waste required immediate action to avoid spread diseases. Right? Wrong. Uneven stair steps to avoid falling. Does it require immediate action? We call it in United States, the person in charge of that, loss control officer. Here in the Philippines, we have the generic safety officer. Any object that block exit doors, in fact, 9514 is very, very explicit in this. You cannot just put plants and all of this in the door or in the exit. If anything happens, and after a fire, an earthquake, or a stampede, an investigator find out that there are plants or there are locks or in the doors, when such things happens, you will be charged of a crime. If anything, if there is death there, homicide. If the locking is intentional, murder. So don't allow, okay? Open canals or manholes. Well, of course, if it is in the front of your school, you have to notify the government officials. And then you have to make it clear with the word receive. So you can transfer the responsibility. And what if it is inside your campus? Or you cannot transfer that to the barangay captain or to the mayor. It will be your sole responsibility, right? So you cannot just simply allow it. Sometimes, playground with this protruding, slides sometimes. There are metal slides, right? And those slides are already old with rust and all of this. But those are actually a call for immediate action. Those should be considered emergency. Lest otherwise, if somebody hurts there, you will be charged for negligence and you will become criminal. When there is an emergency and you fail to abate it or act on it on time and somebody fall victim to it, then that will be classified as negligence or negligent act. Going back to Republic Act 10121 in connection to accident. Okay. This is hazard. In 9514, there's a word there, fire hazard. But in 10121, the word is only hazard. Because 9514 is fire code, so it is only about fire. But 10121 is all about hazard, which defines Section 3, Paragraph V, a dangerous phenomenon, substance, human activity, or condition that may cause loss of life, injury, or health impacts, property damage, loss of livelihood and services, social and economic disruption, or environmental damage. Haba, no? But we will only discuss 4. Okay. 4 sources of hazard: dangerous phenomenon, substance, human activity, condition. Well, can you give an example of a dangerous phenomenon? Yes. Phenomenon are those that are like, typhoon, earthquake. What about substance? Shabu? Yes, it's a substance. What about alcohol, gasoline? Then water. Are there drowning? There are, right? Human activity. Oh, you have so many. Playing basketball. All of this, including welding, carpentry. So many. And then conditions. What are conditions? This is a condition now. Compared to few people inside the room, we are more exposed to hazard than them. Here, we have the possibility of, what's this? Hawa-hawa? Getting a contagious disease from somebody else because someone is with us. If an earthquake happens, there is a possibility of stampede here. There will be no stampede if you are alone in the room, right? Correct. So this is a situation. Feast, in the church, in the school, it's a situation. That's why, to avoid and abate the possibility of having more troubles, it's already dangerous because it's already hazardous. Remember, hazard is not yet, harmful, but it is potential to cause a harm. That's why, in order for us to avoid the adverse effect of a hazard, we learn the conditions. For example, that's the reason why we have the living space for each room. How big is your room? Standard room, classroom. Come on, teachers. Standard classroom according to law, which is enforced by DepEd and CHED. You don't know. 7 by 9 meters, right? That is the standard. The old fire code, yes, the old fire code gives us 1.8 square meter per living space. So 7 by 9 will give you 35 person in that room. That's why, according to CHED, 35 is the ideal number of students in every classroom, right? Because the size of your classroom is good only for 35 person according to law. And the condition, when you are exceeding 35 in the room and an earthquake happens and somebody dies, you will be what? Liable for negligence. That's why, open than not, those who are in the government are the violators of the law. Because they have more, right? Okay, now, I have to stop because somebody will come up here and, arrest me. Because it's already time. Okay, I have to go fast. Categorize the following common example. Well, it's up to you. You categorize. What is that kind of hazard? Condition, hazardous, whatever. Well, Mark will do this. Okay. And still about hazard, the most severe byproduct of an hazard is serious disruption. When there is no serious disruption of community or society, disaster is not present. If someone's house got burned, no disaster yet. But if 20% of the house around the community has been burned, according to the standard set forth by law, then there is disaster. If somebody got sick, there is no, what's that? Ano tawag doon? Epidemic. Epidemic is not yet present. However, if 15% of the total population of the same category has been affected by the same sickness, according to DOH, there is epidemic, and then there is disaster. Oh, one time I remember it was given in a board exam of a teacher, that percentage. I remember that. So these are the classification of hazards, man-made, natural. We don't have yet, that's why we have the asterisk. It is our own doing in the public safety. We don't have yet an international standard categorizing fire and flood as alternative. Why it is alternative? Because this can be both made by nature and man. In case of arson and negligence, that is man-made. In case of lightning strike or spontaneous combustion, that is natural. Flood. In case of heavy rainings, and that is natural. But in case of those blocking the natural floodways, let's say, you put up, what's this? I put up, what's this? Those many houses? Subdivision. You put up subdivision in a riverbed. Well, that is man-made. Just like Undoy. Undoy is not actually just natural. It is caused by several negligent acts of man. So that's why we consider, but anyway, as I was telling you, there is no international categorization yet. However, it is important for us to determine the difference between man-made and natural. Why? Because when it is man-made, you can definitely prevent it 100%. Because man-made, you can stop it. But natural is you have to challenge nature. If you are better than nature, then you can cope with it. But if the nature is stronger than you, then the nature will defeat you, right? For example, you put up a structure, and your structure is so strong that even a magnitude 10 earthquake it can stand even a magnitude 10 earthquake, then that natural hazard can be defeated, right? But if lesser than that, then nature will defeat you. That's why it is very important for us to determine the difference, because this can be perfectly prevented, while this one, we have to, to guess how big or how strong the hazard is. Now, remember, disaster only happens when a community of people exposed to certain hazard fail to cope with the challenges. So the greater your knowledge, the greater the possibility of avoiding disaster. The lesser your knowledge, that the Philippines ranked third, in the most disastrous country in the world, out of more than 170 countries assessed, meaning more Filipinos are ignorant about these things compared to other countries. Well, we cannot say that because our place is really disastrous. No. Japan is like us. We have earthquake, they have. We have typhoon, they have. Whatever, tsunami, they have. We don't have snow, they have. We are not heavily industrialized country like them. They are using more energy than us. We don't have nuclear reactors, they have. How come that we are more disastrous than them? How come that Japan is among the top safest country as far as disaster is concerned? They have, although they are hit, they can bounce back faster than most, even than Europe. Why? Because most of them are knowledgeable. Here, simple problem, we make worse. We destroy what the nature remains. You remember the Yolanda? What has been left by the storm surge was destroyed by the people. Right? The tsunami of Japan in 2011, no record of looting happened. Not a single convenience store was robbed by a Japanese after the triple whammy in 2011, March. In our country, after the Yolanda experience, anything that has been left by the storm surge and the storm was robbed by the people because of our ignorance. So you can see now the role of education in preparing our country. You see now your importance? Obviously, what a community, school, or a school actually needed in order to avoid the development of a disaster is the sufficient knowledge about the specific hazard which poses threat against their safety. Correlately, this will not happen without proper risk reduction education. This is the reason, or this reason justifies this. So let's take it seriously. Please take note, there are no natural disasters, only natural hazards. Okay? Oh, Mike will take it also, So now I will now hand over to you to Mike Saban for the last session tomorrow. Okay? But before that, in case you need to know more about our topic today, these books can help you. I authored that. This was requested to me by one of our USEC. This is for the teacher, and this is for the student. Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, we have 10 minutes for question and answer sessions for Dr. Capulso and Dr. Israel. Yes, there's already a question, Dr. Lisa. Hold on, I think I have another. That's mine. Go ahead.
For Dr. Capulso and Sir Berhenes.
Yes.
So I have first question to Dr. Capulso. Sir, thank you for your presentation. Everything you have presented, all the obvious, but there are non-obvious that are more dangerous when it comes to bullying, because what students do in bullying is the ripple effect of what the higher people did to them. I mean, if we look at in the big picture, who are the first bullies? The Congress. You know, they created this law. Sometimes it's insane. They created law that contradicts each other. For example, they created law anti-bullying, but they created law that protects the kids from bullying. And the thing is, the irony is, it's not the only the kids are not, the students are not the only get bullied, but teachers. And apart from that, parents bullied teachers. Now, there are instances that one of the students, my student, have been receiving threat from the parent, the mother of the child, that she tried to discipline in a classroom. So can you imagine this congressmen and congresswomen are bullies because they created law for the sake of budget. You know, because when they create law, they get budget. And I don't know how much they bully Secretary Briones for approving that law. Because when the Congress, before they approve that, they should consult the people. And the most important people are the teachers, because these are the people who knows what is going on in the classroom, the behavior of their student. But I don't know if that happens because the secretary approved this law. So now, being in the DepEd, I'm sorry, I'm not bullying you. It's just that you're the right person. I can share with this. In the DepEd, since I don't know, I have no idea if you are being consulted also before this law is approved, because the anti-bullying, actually, there are lots of loopholes that can be fought back by the protection, Child Act protection, that when you get to the court, actually, the victim end up a loser. So as a DepEd, one of the officer in the DepEd in your department, how can a DepEd provisions, because you said in your presentation, if I remember clearly, you had this educate the community, the academic community. What about the community around you? Do they know that parents shouldn't bully teacher? How does the DepEd protect teacher from parents bullying them?
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate that question, and that's very timely and very realistic. No, I'd been bullied many times when I was a teacher. I mean, when I was a rank and file teacher. And that's exactly why I personally, what I did was, when you ask me were teachers consulted prior to the approval of the law, I personally don't have a personal knowledge. But now, because of these abuses of the law, by people who they themselves created, and to the point that teachers were left unprotected. There are, as mentioned yesterday, there were some concerned groups of teachers who tried to protect teachers. Because from some group of teachers, they find that even the Secretary of Education is not looking for their own welfare. We created some alliance, the one that I'm telling you. And exactly the one that authors the bill is actually a congresswoman under that alliance of concerned teachers, because they thought that it's only the law can protect teachers from that law earlier approved. From the lower end, there were also some consultations done. That is why in the local level, for example, in Region 3, the Central Luzon, where I am part of, we are creating a teachers' union. But I hope no one will kill me after this. I used to be an active member of the alliance. But somebody from the government called the attention of all the superintendents in Region 3. And my name was mentioned. And my superintendent, without knowing the real issue, raised his hand. He was actually very proud that I belong to the division, just to find out that I am under surveillance of the National Information Council, the NICA, in the intelligence. Because I am part of this group who's trying to protect the welfare of the teachers. And up to now, there were already some teachers who were caught from schools, and principals don't even bother to protect their teachers. And I think if you have to ask me what DepEd is doing, maybe from the offset, you see some concerned school leaders. But in the real scenario, I myself have to silent my voice because I have a wife to protect. But I think for now, the only way to protect teachers from this is the approval of this Teachers Protection Act. Because in this inner circle among teachers union groups, we were informed that there were even superintendents. So we're the one giving the list to the authorities so that their teachers will be taken out of the school. And up to now, there were teachers whose name, they are not yet found because they were kidnapped inside the school by this group who, they were actually in civilians. But later on, I don't know, according to the information, they might be part of the military. Sir is here, but I don't know how real was that. I wasn't there. That's why I think I said it's supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be fair. It was mentioned in the presentation of my partner here that teachers are supposed to be local parents. And I think as teachers, we will not do anything to harm our students. And I think also there is now the demand to bring back the good manners and right conduct because of the abuses of students towards their elders. All these things put together, I think there is now the need to put our voices together as teachers, no? Since I am also part of the teaching force. And let the school leaders realize that creating a safe and psychological community is the task of the whole community, even the parents. But one thing I learned about leadership from my previous school is that I know that my principal, my leader, is actually protecting me. He has his own way of trying to protect teachers. If teachers or parents are very aggressive, he will not allow that parent to go straight to the teacher. He has to face the principal, know the concerns. It's only when everything is settled that they have to face each other. But unfortunately, not all school leaders have the same attitude.
Thank you. And I hope, I'm not monopolizing, I just have last question that Sir Verhines. Sir, your presentation, the way I understand it, it's telling me that my ignorance will kill me, right?
Most likely.
It's like, and we know the law says, ignorance of the law excuses no one, which is very opposite to what the Bible say. You will be saved according to the light you receive. So you have mentioned everything that the negligence and the accident. So my question is, there are areas every year get flooded. Every year, okay? So what are the DRRM is doing to prevent that? Because it's been going on like forever. It gets flooded every year. So you are in that position. What are the options? What are the strategies that this flooding would be alleviated for the coming years?
Okay, first, the ignorance is non excusat first. God can read the mind. Man cannot. If human being will adopt the principle of God that you will be judged according to the light you receive, then we cannot convict any criminal. Because all criminals will simply make ignorance as a defense. That's why we cannot apply this to our common life. While I believe that God will judge us according to the light we receive. Now, based on, regarding to your question on the floodings, well, you know, the DRRM and the government is not the only one using our environment. We know the reason why it is happening. No matter how we teach our people, implement the law, remove them from waterways and so on and so forth, they keep coming back. We cannot watch all the people where they throw their garbage all the time. Besides, our roads are needed to be cemented. If you don't cement it, or if you don't pave it, the people will be mad at you because of a bad road. But every road we cement, it is actually additional inability of the ground to absorb more rainwater. You roof your houses, and then you directed your water to your downspout going to our canals, and then we throw garbage to the canal. What can we do with this except otherwise educate the people? That's why we cannot use here enforcement all at all. We need to educate the people. That's why it is embedded in the law that it should be included in our curriculum. You go to Japan. I always use to illustrate Japan. I just came from Israel last month, and then July in Guam, the other time on Japan. I saw the difference. Japan is very clean. You can even smell the air. You know, the clothes I wear there smells better than my clothes that are newly washed here. No exaggeration. Look at my shoes. I used to use shoes with white sole. In Japan, it will not turn dark. But here, it will. Just in Israel, you look at Israel, and then Palestine, just adjacent, divided by a wall, and you can see the difference. It is the people that makes the difference. The other portion is dirty, while the other portion is clean. The other portion is safer, while the other portion is hazardous. So we have to educate our people. There where the teacher's role is very, very needed. That's why the CHED, the DepEd, and the TESDA, and all our academic system are required by law to integrate this. But we have to teach the teachers first. We have to teach them first, because even if they know how to teach, if they don't know what to teach, what they will teach. Until now, we don't have major in disaster preparedness subject. Actually, it was 2009 when I prepared a curriculum for Bachelor of Science in Education, major in Fire Safety and Disaster Management. And it was sponsored by AUP during Dr. Flores as president. It was approved by CHED Region 4. But until now, no enrollees. Hopefully. Because we need teachers who are major in this so they can teach well. Because we cannot expect the Bureau of Fire and all of these people to teach people, because first, they are not teachers. And even if you're a teacher, you should know what to teach, right? So that's why it's already there. We are doing our part, but I don't know how can we get together. We need to we cannot stop these floodings and all of this by simply enforcing the law. We need the help of the people, and we need to educate them. And there where the role of the teacher is very, very indispensable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay. Since the time is so limited, I would like to end the question and answer session. And I would like to present the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Leonilo Capulso and Dr. Israel Fierhines. So may I invite Dr. Capulso? Let's give him a hand. And Dr.